Hey everyone, it's Brittny and welcome back to the archive. Today we're diving into bizarre and horrifying diseases. Flesh-eating bacteria, bodies turning to stone, and conditions so rare they affect only a few. Get ready to have your mind blown and maybe lose a little sleep. This is straight out of a horror movie, but real. From ancient plagues to modern mysteries, we're uncovering the truth. So buckle up and get ready for a wild ride. Imagine this. You trip and fall, get a bruise, or have a minor muscle strain. No big deal, right? For someone with fibrodysplasia ossificans progressiva, or FOP, that minor injury could start a terrifying transformation. FOP is a rare genetic disorder affecting 1 in 2 million people. With FOP, your body can't tell muscle from bone. Instead of scar tissue, it forms bone. Muscles, tendons, and ligaments harden into bone. Joints lock and the body becomes a second skeleton. Imagine being trapped in your own flesh and bone. As the disease progresses, everyday movements become impossible. Imagine not being able to lift your arms, turn your head, or even open your mouth to eat. People with FOP describe it as feeling like they're slowly turning to stone, their bodies becoming rigid and unyielding. And here's the truly terrifying part. There's no cure for FOP. Doctors can't even operate to remove the extra bone because the surgery itself would just trigger more bone to grow. Imagine the feeling of helplessness, knowing that any bump or bruise could set off a chain reaction, turning your body against you. It's a race against time, as the disease slowly robs its victims of their mobility, their independence, and ultimately, their lives. The average life expectancy for someone with FOP is only about 40 years. And the saddest part? Many people with FOP live in constant fear, afraid of even the slightest injury that could further accelerate their condition. We've all heard of flesh-eating bacteria, but get ready for this. Noma is a bacterial infection so aggressive, so ruthlessly destructive, that it literally eats away at the faces of its victims. Now here's the truly heartbreaking part. Noma primarily affects children, mostly those living in extreme poverty with weakened immune systems. It starts subtly, maybe a sore gum or a small ulcer inside the mouth. But then, it quickly escalates, spreading like wildfire and destroying everything in its path. Imagine a child, already struggling to survive, suddenly facing this horrific illness. The bacteria attack the soft tissues of the face, eating away at the gums, cheeks, even the bones. It's a relentless assault, leaving behind unimaginable pain and disfigurement. Noma is a disease of poverty and neglect, often found in areas with poor sanitation, malnutrition, and limited access to healthcare. And without immediate treatment, its effects are devastating. The bacteria can eat away at a child's face in a matter of days, leaving them with gaping holes where their cheeks, lips, and even their noses once were. And if you think that's bad, it gets even worse. The fatality rate for Noma is incredibly high, reaching up to 90% in some cases. That means that 9 out of 10 children who contract this disease, children who are already fighting an uphill battle, don't stand a chance. But even for those who do survive, the scars of Noma run deep. Imagine living with the physical and emotional trauma of losing your face, of being ostracized and feared because of a disease most people have never even heard of. Okay, so we've talked about bodies turning to bone and faces being eaten away, but get ready for this next one. It's called Harlequin Ichthyosis, and it affects babies right from birth. Imagine a tiny newborn, but instead of soft, delicate skin, they're covered in these thick, diamond-shaped plates, like they were born wearing armor, but not the cool kind. This armor is their own skin, gone haywire. It's so tight and rigid that it pulls at their eyelids and lips, making it hard to even open their eyes or close their mouths. And as if that wasn't heartbreaking enough, the skin constantly cracks and splits open, leaving them vulnerable to infections. You're probably thinking, there's no way anyone could survive that. And you'd be right, at least until recently. Back in the day, almost all babies born with Harlequin Ichthyosis didn't make it past a few days. It was just too much for their tiny bodies to handle. But here's a tiny glimmer of hope. Thanks to modern medicine, some people with Harlequin Ichthyosis are living into adulthood. They need special creams and constant monitoring, but they're proving life is possible. It's still incredibly rare and there's no cure, but some are defying the odds. It shows the resilience of the human spirit. All right, y'all, buckle up for this one, because we're venturing into some seriously messed up territory. We're talking cannibalism. But not just any cannibalism. Cannibalism that leads to an absolutely terrifying disease. Deep in the remote highlands of Papua New Guinea, there lived a tribe called the Four People. And for centuries, they practiced a rather unusual ritual. They ate the brains of their deceased loved ones. Yummy. The Four believed it was a way to honor them and absorb their strength. But this ritualistic practice came with a horrifying side effect, a deadly prion disease called kuru. It literally means to shake or trembling fear. Talk about an ominous name. Now here's where things get really creepy. The early symptoms of kuru were all about losing control. People would start to shake uncontrollably, their muscles would spasm, and they'd have trouble walking. But then came the truly disturbing part, the laughter. As the disease progressed, those infected would burst into fits of uncontrollable maniacal laughter, even when they were clearly suffering. Hence the chilling nickname, the Laughing Death. This went on for years, with the Four People completely baffled by this devastating disease that was wiping out their tribe. Finally, in the 1950s, researchers discovered the link between kuru and their cannibalistic practices. Once the Four People were convinced to abandon their ritualistic cannibalism, kuru began to disappear, but not before it had claimed the lives of thousands of people. Okay, so we've talked about some pretty intense physical diseases, but this next one is all about the senses. Specifically, the sense of smell. And trust me, it's way worse than just having a stuffy nose. Imagine this. You wake up, take a shower, scrub yourself squeaky clean, slap on some deodorant, and you still reek. Not just any reek, but the pungent, unmistakable stench of rotting fish. That's the harsh reality for people with trimethylaminuria, also known as fish odor syndrome. It's a rare genetic disorder that messes with your body's ability to break down a certain chemical found in food. And guess what that chemical smells like? You got it. Fish. But not just any fish. The kind that's been sitting out in the sun for days. Not exactly the kind of fragrance you want following you around, right? Now you might think, okay, it's just a bad smell, how bad could it be? But you're forgetting something crucial. Our sense of smell is incredibly powerful. It affects how we perceive the world, how others perceive us, and even our mental health. For people with trimethylaminuria, that constant fishy stench follows them everywhere they go. It seeps out through their sweat, their breath, even their urine. Imagine the embarrassment, the shame, the constant fear of being judged and ostracized. Pretty gnarly, huh? And that's exactly what happens. Many people with this condition end up isolating themselves from the world, afraid of the reactions they'll get. And I can't necessarily blame them. They avoid social situations, romantic relationships, even job interviews, all because of a smell they can't control. There's no cure for trimethylaminuria, and even treatments like special diets or medications can only do so much. It's a life sentence of social isolation and emotional distress, all thanks to a cruel twist of biology. Progeria. It sounds like something out of a Greek myth, doesn't it? Like something ancient and powerful and terrifying. And in a way, it is. Progeria steals childhoods, turning children into old people before they grow up. Imagine being a parent, watching your child age before your eyes. Their skin thins, hair falls out, joints stiffen, and there's nothing you can do. Born with a rare genetic mutation, they age at 7 times the normal rate. Imagine being 8 years old but looking like you're 80. What causes this rapid aging? It's a tiny protein called lamin A. Lamin A holds our cells together. In progeria, lamin A is faulty. It's like building with broken bricks. the structure crumbles quickly. Sadly, there's no cure yet. Scientists are working tirelessly, but nothing has changed as far as a cure. Life is precious, every day is a gift. The human spirit shines through. Sit back in your chair for this, because the next one is straight out of a horror movie. We're talking about alien hand syndrome, a rare neurological disorder. Imagine your own hand turning against you. It starts subtly, fingers twitching, moving without control. Then it escalates. Your hand starts grabbing objects, even unbuttoning your shirt in public. It's like your hand has a mind of its own, and it gets even more disturbing. Some report their hand tries to hurt them, slapping them, digging nails into their skin. Imagine waking up with your hand around your throat. It's the stuff of nightmares. Alien hand syndrome is real, caused by brain damage. Our brains control everything we do, from breathing to thinking. Different parts handle different functions. Alien hand syndrome often involves damage to the corpus callosum, disrupting brain-hand communication. The hand acts on its own, as if it has a mind of its own. There's no cure, only physical therapy to regain control. It's a lifelong struggle, living with a limb that betrays them. If you've ever seen the movie Idle Hands, it's just like that. We've talked about diseases that steal your youth, diseases that turn your own body against you, but this one transforms you into something out of a dark fairy tale. This is epidermodysplasia verruciformis, or tree man syndrome. Imagine your skin turning against you, erupting in massive bark-like warts. That's the reality for people with this rare genetic disorder. It has to be worse than awful, because it was tough to even look at the pics I used for this video. Imagine trying to go about your day with these massive growths covering your hands and feet. It makes even the simplest tasks, like buttoning a shirt or tying your shoes, impossible. These warts can fuse together, forming large horn-like structures that restrict movement. The psychological toll is devastating. Imagine seeing your body overtaken by these growths. The isolation and fear are unimaginable. Surgery can remove growths, but they often grow back. Sometimes, surgery triggers more warts. There's no cure for tree man syndrome. Treatment involves surgery, medication, and ongoing care. Sometimes, the most terrifying monsters are in our genes, which means there's absolutely nothing you can do to prevent it. Not fun. On to another crazy story, because this next one is straight out of a medical mystery novel. The more I learned about this one, the more questions I had. We're talking about Field's disease, and this one is more rare than you can even imagine. As in, there are only 2 confirmed cases in the entire world. Kind of rare. That's right, just 2 people on this entire planet have ever been diagnosed with this disease. And to make things even more unsettling, those 2 people just happen to be identical twins. Coincidence? Maybe, maybe not. But it definitely adds to the mystery, right? We're talking about a progressive neuromuscular disorder that slowly robs you of your ability to move and speak. Imagine your muscles getting weaker and weaker every single day, making it harder to walk, talk, even breathe. It's a terrifying thought, and for those 2 individuals living with Field's disease, it's a heartbreaking reality. And here's the really scary part. Doctors and scientists have absolutely no idea what causes Field's disease. None. Zero. Zilch. It's a total medical enigma. They've run tests, studied the twins' DNA, and pored over countless medical journals, but so far, no answers. It's like this disease just appeared out of thin air. And because there are only 2 people on the planet with this condition, research is incredibly limited. Imagine being one of those twins, knowing that you have a disease so rare that science barely even recognizes it exists. It's a chilling thought, and it just goes to show you how much we still don't know about the human body and the strange, terrifying ways it can betray us. All right, y'all, we've arrived at the final disease on our list, and trust me, this one is a real doozy. We're talking about fatal familial insomnia. This one is the stuff of nightmares. Imagine this. You close your eyes hoping for a good night's sleep, but your mind just won't shut off. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and still, you haven't slept a wink. That's the terrifying reality for people with fatal familial insomnia, a genetic disorder so rare and so terrifying that it makes every other sleep disorder look like a walk in the park. This isn't your average case of the late-night jitters. This is a relentless, progressive insomnia that just won't quit. No matter how exhausted you are, how many sleeping pills you take, how many meditation apps you try, sleep remains frustratingly out of reach. And as if that wasn't terrifying enough, the lack of sleep starts to unravel your mind and body. We're talking hallucinations, paranoia, drastic weight loss, and complete cognitive decline. Imagine your brain slowly shutting down, your thoughts becoming jumbled and incoherent, your body betraying you in every way imaginable. It's a slow and agonizing descent into madness, and ultimately, there's no escape. Fatal familial insomnia is, as the name suggests, fatal. With no cure and no effective treatment, the disease relentlessly progresses, pushing its victims further and further down a rabbit hole of sleeplessness and despair. So, fatal familial insomnia is about as terrifying as it gets. It's a stark reminder that sometimes the things our bodies need most, like sleep, can also be the things that ultimately destroy us. So, which one of these nightmares freaked you out the most? Let me know in the comments. And if you made it this far without squirming, congratulations, you're braver than most. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the world's most terrifying diseases, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because trust me, there's plenty more where this came from. See you in the next one.